Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
How about you?
I'm fine, thank you. You're in America and I'm in London, so.
Yes. Across the ocean, right?
Well, I'm Canadian, so I crossed it the other way, I guess you could say.
You are from Canada originally.
Yes, I am, yeah.
Which part of Canada?
I was born in Ottawa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I am a frequent visitor to Montreal.
Oh, yes, lovely city. I can understand why you're a frequent visitor.
We have family over there and friends.
Yeah, excellent, yeah.
In the summertime.
Yeah.
But in winter, forget about it.
Well, are you in DC?
Today I am in New Jersey, in Princeton.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to travel frequently to DC when Trump was president.
Yes.
Today I'm retired from politics, so
yes,
it's quiet here in Princeton.
One wonders, is Trump retiring from politics? That's the question.
That's the question. We don't know. Yeah. It's very complicated issue here in the US, especially in the coming 45 days for the election. Everybody is busy with the midterm elections.
Yeah, yes. They're pretty crucial, I would think, to the future of American democracy.
Yes. We'll see what happens.
Without wanting to interrupt, my name's Joe Haynes. I'll be chairing this evening's discussion, this evening from London, I should say. If we wait perhaps one more minute for any more attendees, and then I can give a few words of introduction and explain the sequence of speakers, but again, in 1 minute's time.
Okay.
Okay, if we begin. I had planned a longer introduction, but with such a wealth of experience on the call, I thought I would restrict my comments to saying simply that the UAE is currently detaining dozens of prisoners of conscience, political opponents, and human rights defenders, including, of course, men and women. As I'm sure you're all aware, the UAE is prison. Thank you very much. The UAE's prison system is infamous, particularly a prison with a particularly fearsome reputation is Al Wadhba in Abu Dhabi. Several detainees have died over the last years due to mistreatment, amongst whom we must mention the late Ali Abdul Noor, who died of, I believe, cancer in Wadhba in 2019, following 4 years of mistreatment and neglect. Other detainees who have committed suicide attempted to commit suicide over the last period, including Maryam Suleiman al-Balushi. Of course, we must mention Ahmed Mansour, perhaps the UAE's most prominent human rights defender, who's been held in solitary confinement in, I believe, a Sadr prison since 2018. Other detainees, that is, include Dr. Mohammed Arukan, academic Nasser Ben Raif, and many, many others. Needless to say, the UAE enjoys close relations with Britain, with France, with the United States, across a number of and industries, defense, finance, tourism, and so on. These links are, of course, deep and wide and will be, I'm sure, part of tonight's discussion. If I can now move to introducing the panelists, I'll simply introduce their names and a short word on their biography. If I may, I'll let the panelists introduce their own talks, since these are subjects change often. We've got seven speakers tonight and an hour and a half. So if I can ask people to, if you'll excuse my maths, please restrict themselves to no more than 10, possibly 12 or 13 minutes. That would be much appreciated. And again, the order that I read the names in will be, if convenient, the order in which people will speak. First, Gilles Devers, a lawyer and academic who has represented the Palestinian Authority at the ICJ. Ahmed Ashaiba and Nuami, a UAE activist, will speak after Gilles. After him, Gabriel Sam, a professor of Middle East Studies at Fairleigh Dickinson University. I was told that, I believe, Mr. Salma, you're in fact at Princeton now, and a former member of President Trump's advisory board for Middle East affairs. Then Bill Law, the current editor of Arab Digest and a former Gulf analyst for the BBC. After him, Khalid Ibrahim, a co-founder of the Gulf Center for Human Rights and the same center's current executive director. Raed Jarrar, director of advocacy at Democracy for the Arab World Now, or DAWN, based in DC. And then last but not least, Rina Shah, a geopolitical strategist and advisor. And assuming that all the speakers are happy with that order, I'd like to ask Gilles, please, you have the floor. If indeed Gilles is with us. Unfortunately, it appears Gilles is not able to join us, but Raed, if I read your question correctly, you need to leave in 30 minutes. Perhaps, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can. Hello, everyone. My name is Raed Jarrar. I am the advocacy director with DAWN, Democracy for the Arab World Now. It's the organization that was founded by the late Jamal Khashoggi. I'm going to speak just for three or 4 minutes about our work, and I will give more time for other folks on the panel to speak more about from their experience. I want to point out that I wish we had more women on the panel because it's always important to hear voices from women experts on the Middle East or human rights issues. But of course, I also look forward to hearing all of the comments from my colleagues who will be presenting. So my organization, DAWN, was founded by the late Jamal Khashoggi before he was killed by agents of the Saudi government. And we've launched the organization officially in 2020. So it's been operating for a couple of years now. We focus on a few countries in the Middle East and North Africa, including Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Egypt and Israel-Palestine. And most of our work focuses on exposing some of the violations that happen on the ground, but also exposing the United States' role in supporting or aiding some of these violations by continuing its military aid and military sales and political support to some of these governments. So what I wanted to share today is that we have worked on 3 galleries on our website. Our website is donmina.org. I will share it in the chat box in a second. We have one gallery with unjust prosecutions. And I know that other colleagues on the panel will talk more about cases like the UAE 94 political prisoners. We have 2 of these prisoners featured on our website. One of them is Abdel Salam al-Marzuqi, and the other is Muhammad al-Rokan. And you can visit these unjust prosecutions by following the link that I just dropped in the box. We have in-depth, on-the-ground research about these cases, and of course they're documented by a few other international human rights organizations. These cases include prisoners who have been there for over a decade. Many of them are still in prison despite ending their sentence, serving their sentence, because the UAE is using some vaguely worded law about counterterrorism to keep them in prison longer. So that's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation that Don has been working on is focusing on who is doing these violations, because there are people behind these violations. Just in the last couple of months, we have featured 2 new names in our culprit gallery. The first one is Judge Muhammad Hamad Abdel Qadir, and I just pasted a link to his profile in the chat box. And the other one is a police captain. His name is Captain Ali Saif. Both of them are engaged in these violations, the ones that I mentioned. And soon we'll be featuring lobbyists from the UAE who help maintain the United States support to violations that are committed in those countries. I just posted a link to that in the chat box. See, I used my 4 minutes. I'll give the floor back to Joe. I hope people will have time to look at our website. I look forward to listening to the comments from my other colleagues.
Thank you so much, Raid. I will certainly look at those links that you've left. Thank you for them. Gilles, I appreciate you weren't able to join at 5 o'clock, but I mentioned in my introduction that you would be speaking. You would be speaking next. I wouldn't want to put you on the spot, however. You're muted, Jim. Mr. Dever, are you able to to speak, or would you prefer to?
Okay, that's good. So in few minutes, my question is what to do as a lawyer, and which court is competent, and which proceeding. It is everybody here knows it is difficult, but we have to progress, and it is a pity to see that Palestinian prisoners have a case only before Israeli jurisdictions. So it is most difficult to act for Palestinians because we have not much solution. We have few solutions. But we have to examine what is possible before the ICC, and perhaps against a company, we are involved in the transport of prisoners, which is a crime on international law, and the control and the control of
I'm sorry to interrupt, Gilles, but you appear to be muted.
Yes, you're right. So I think that the first thing is to contest, and we do not accept that Palestinians are relevant for Israeli jurisdiction. And we have to, in the history, it was at the beginning of the armed resistance in year 68, 69. And there is the first case from a young man who was armed resistance, who was judged in Ramallah by an Israeli court. And they say, you do not have the right to judge us because we are a fighter, we are international combatant, and we have the statute protected by the Third Convention of Geneva. And you do not have any right to judge us. And there is a first decision of Israeli military court, and they are confirmed by the Supreme Court. But the first Palestinian prisoner was right. They are combatants, they are international fighters, and they are part of Israel, of resistance, and resistance is part of an international conflict. So the first thing is to contest the possibility of Israeli court to judge the Palestinian. And actually, the situation is so difficult in Palestine, especially in West Bank, that it is difficult to say as in a classical way that you are international combatant, because all these criteria are mixed, and it is not clearly an army. But they are resistance. They are not criminal. And so the first thing is to contest that. And I think that it is interesting to act before the ICC, because everybody knows here the ICC decision on February 2021. We say that Palestine is a state, and a state with competence, territorial competence for West Bank, Gaza, and Jerusalem Est. So if there is a competence for Palestine, there is no competence for Israeli. And it is not directly the situation, the life of a prisoner, but it is the principle. So I know that it is difficult to work with the ICC. I practice this jurisdiction, and the actual prosecutor says that it is difficult to work for Palestine, that he has no budget, it is complicated, and the Palestinian government is weak. That is real, but the court has no future if she do nothing for Palestinians. And nobody in the world would accept that we can act against Ukraine and make nothing for Palestinians. So we have to focus on this court, because the decision of February last year was an excellent decision, and permit to lay exactly the good approach. It is not a question of criminal persons, it is a question of international fighter protected by the Third Geneva, and you do not have to judge them.
Gilles, I'm so sorry to interrupt your talk, but I should say that today's session is on the UAE, and rather than Israel-Palestine. And we thank you for speaking on the latter topic, which is obviously crucial. But yeah, I must remind you of today's topic.
Okay, that's good.
Excuse me if
No,
you weren't informed beforehand.
that's good for me.
Thank you so much then for your contribution. If I can next introduce Ahmed Ashiba and Naimi. I apologize if I mispronounced your name, Ahmed. Assuming you're with us. And hopefully Ahmed will be able to join us. In the meantime, if I could ask Professor Salma to take the floor. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wish to thank the Arab Organization for the Human Rights in the United Kingdom for inviting me to this session. I'm glad to meet some of my distinguished colleagues in this session. My name is Gabriel Sauma. I am professor of Middle East Studies at Fairleigh Dickinson University. I'm also expert consultant on Islamic matrimonial law, Islamic marriage, divorce, custody of the children, and I handle cases involving abduction of children to the Middle East. The United Arab Emirates is a place where I have been visiting frequently in the past. I lived and worked in Saudi Arabia, and I've been to most of these countries in the Middle East. I was born in Lebanon originally, studied law in Lebanon, and practiced law in Lebanon. I was nominated to be a judge in Lebanon. So today we are going to be talking about the human rights violations in the United Arab Emirates. And I get my information from the United States Department of State, as I was a member of the President Trump's advisory board for 4 years. We all know that there are arbitrary arrests and detention in the United Arab Emirates. Incommunicado detention. We know there are political prisoners over there. There are restrictions on free expression and media. There are restrictions on internet freedom, on the peaceful assembly. Activists and academics are jailed. There are forced disappearances over there, and people are tortured in these prisons. If we are going to talking about these violations, United Arab is just one out of many countries in the world, in the Middle East and outside the Middle East also. So this is an international issue that has to be dealt with by the international bodies. First of all, there are many countries, including the United Arab Emirates, who did not sign on some of the conventions that are part of the international law. For instance, UAE did not sign on the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR. They didn't sign on International Convention on Economics, on Social and Cultural Rights, and they are not signatory on Convention on the protection of the rights of all migrant workers and their families. There are also conventions, UN conventions that they are signatory on, that is United Arab Emirates, as well as other Arab countries. They are signatory to these conventions, but they entered reservations on these conventions. I would mention, for example, the Convention on the Rights of the Child. The United Arab Emirates had reservations on two issues that are related, that violate Islamic law, for example, adoption, change of religion. The United Arab Emirates is signatory to the Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, but they entered reservations on two articles from this convention. One deals with the equal right between men and women, and the other one is the right to change a religion. A third one is the equal right to divorce, like the men have, not only in the United Arab Emirates, but other countries also, they have the same problems. So overall, these issues, I don't know if the ICC could deal with, because not every member of the nations is part of the ICC. In the past, they passed orders regarding some leaders in Africa, for example. They were successful in some aspects, but they were not successful in other aspects. And I leave it at this point now.
Thank you so much, Professor Salma. Much appreciated. At his request, Mr. Ibrahim will speak next. After him, Bilal will address us. And so, Khalid, please, after you.
Thank you so much, Joe, and thanks to all the speakers for their contribution. I would like to talk about all those victims, all the detained human rights defenders and prisoners of conscience in UAE, and including many of them who I know them very well, such as Ahmed Mansour, who's on the advisory board of the Gulf Center for Human Rights. Now, we witnessed in recent years many trends across the MENA region, such as the closure of civic space, targeting of human rights defenders on fabricated charges just due to their peaceful and legitimate human rights work, and treating them worse than criminals. In addition to the fact that the public freedoms in general, such as freedom of expression, freedom of peaceful assembly, all are not recognized or respected. And when we speak about UAE, I have to say that the authorities continue to implement their systematic repressive policies, which include, as I said, targeting human rights activists and restricting public freedoms. It is a fact that the UAE authorities still refuse to release 48 prisoners of conscience, although they served their full sentence. Now, criminals always, they could be released after serving 2/3 of their sentence, due to all the amnesties that are given to them in the Eid, which is Muslims' festivals. Now, no, even one single prisoner of conscience was included in all these amnesties. All the amnesties are given to criminals. So defenders and activists, they have to serve the full sentence. And after that, they will keep them in a prison. Now, all that are said, then there are a lot of restrictions on freedom of opinion and the freedom of the press. Just recently, the authorities closed down Al-Ru'ya, a newspaper in Dubai, and there is no time to talk about that, but about 90 staff, they lost their jobs after they were forced to resign. There are a lot of documentation by the international community, by the international mechanisms, including the UN system, about violations in UAE. So there is kind of a collective judgment that UAE is brutal when it's about human rights. The state security apparatus really needs to be talked about all the time due to the way they treated prisoners of conscience and their families. They targeted not just the prisoners of conscience, but also their families and their friends. Now, I just go to quickly to a few notes that I have, including the fact that there is no any local remedy. Like when you have a violation against your rights as a citizen, where you go, there is no any local remedy. So, witnessing that, GCHR, the Gulf Center of Human Rights, we try since 2018 to use the international, the concept of international jurisdiction. So, in cooperation with the human rights lawyer William Borden in France, we managed to put a case against Major General Ahmed Nasser al-Risi, who is now the head of the Interpol, for involvement in the torture of my colleague Ahmed Mansour. Now, Ahmed Mansour, my colleague, he was arrested on the 20th of March, 2017. Still, until now, as we speak, still he is on solitary confinement, only in a small cell, isolated from the outside world, with only his clothes on him, no books, no access to any sport or any proper medical care. Now, Major General Raisi joined the police force in UAE in 1980. He became the General Inspector of the Ministry of Interior in 2017. So surely he is involved in the torture of my colleague. And on that basis, we made a case against him in France, and it is still before the judiciary in France. In addition to that, I believe strongly that the unconditional support that is given by countries such as US and UK, probably one of the main reasons of why we have seen this deterioration in the human rights situation in UAE and in other Gulf countries and some other countries in the MENA region. I have to mention two prisoners of conscience. They are both female, Amina Al-Aboudi and Maryam Al-Blushi. Now they served the full sentence, and in order for authorities to keep them in prison, they created a new charge against them. It's called publishing false information, disturbing public order. Surely this is a fabricated charge. It is mainly designed to keep them in a prison. In addition to Al-Abdouli and Al-Blushi, we have another 46 prisoners of conscience still in prison, although they served their full sentence. And what the authorities
themselves only, like Ahmed Mansour, like Muhammad al-Rukn, like all those people who we know that they did great job in their community, but unfortunately, this is a punishment from the government that we have to talk about. Thank you very, very much for listening, and sorry for this short speech.
No apologies necessary. Thank you very much for your contribution, Ahmed. It was most appreciated. I've been told that with us we have Hamad Shamsi. Hamad, I'm not sure if you might want to say a few words. Mr. Shamsi, if you're with us. Hamad, if you're with us. We hope Mr. Shamsi can indeed join us and will speak to us shortly. If we wait a few minutes and Ahmed, I know you just spoke, but I wonder if I might ask you a question.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I listened with great interest to what you were saying, and I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned Dr. Reith, I believe, who teaches in France. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about any Emirati or perhaps Khaliji diaspora groups in Europe. Do you think that they're somehow safe from the authorities in the Gulf, or do you think?
I didn't get you. Can you repeat your question?
I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about any diaspora groups, any groups of activists from the Gulf who are living perhaps in Europe or America, and whether you think they're able to organize, whether you think they're safe from the authorities.
Yeah. All right. We remember that one of the lawyers, solicitor that for Sheikh Jamal Khashoggi, actually he was arrested in the United Arab Emirates. And when we talk about that he had no problem at all in the UAE. So anyone who is activist, any organization, they have to be careful when they go to the United Arab Emirates. The government in the United Arab Emirates, they don't now respect any government, or they don't, because they did not see any reaction from the other government. They arrested an academic person, an academic teacher from UK. They tortured him until he tried to suicide. It's really horrible. So it's no one actually is safe with this government, because they don't respect laws, they don't respect manners, they don't respect even the values of how to deal with the humanity. Yeah, so this is my answer. I think I answer your question.
You did indeed. Thank you very much. Yeah, an unfortunate answer, but I thank you for it nonetheless. Yeah. And again, unfortunately, Mr. Shamsi isn't able to speak with us. And so I think that brings today's webinar to a close. On behalf of the AOHR UK, I want to thank everyone who came, especially the speakers. I believe the organisation will be releasing a short report on today's discussion, and I certainly hope, the organisation hopes, that it continues into the months and years ahead. And so, from London, good evening, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you.